You're listening to the Welcome to the Rebellion podcast. Hey, Jay, are you ready? Because it's time to start the show.
What is good, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Welcome to the Rebellion podcast. I'm your host, Jay. And yes, there might be a lot of jokes today about my appearance because I'm on my backup camera, all that stuff, but it's okay. It's okay because it's well worth it for the guests that I have on. Some of you might not even know who this person is, but if you're a comic book fan or a comic book person, you definitely know. You definitely know Mike Barron. And no need for a long-winded introduction of this legend. Just going to bring him on. Welcome, Mike Barron, to the podcast. How are you, good sir? How has your day been?
Been good so far. It's my third podcast today.
Your third today.
Well, the other two, they weren't. They were Zoom meetings, planning with my showrunner, Chris Brawley. So I've been sitting here staring into the camera quite a lot. But this is really the first one where I'm reaching out and talking to fans.
I don't care what anybody says. I'm your number one fan. I know you hear that all the time, but I'm going to tell a little tale that I was talking about earlier before we went live, just so everybody knows what kind of a fanboy I am. I was in Colorado, and I didn't realize Mike Barron was going to be there. So I have about 4 of these Punisher number ones. As you can tell, my green screen messes them up. But anyway, 4 of these Punisher. Yeah, there it is. And when I found out that he was there, I was like, I ran through that Comic-Con and I went to all the comic book shop. I was like, do you have a Punisher number one? Do you have one? Finally, this guy knew I was desperate. He probably double charged me, which I don't care. I went and got another one just so I could run all the way back before you left to have you autograph one. And because I was like, it's a once in a lifetime. Maybe, who knows? Who knows with your busy schedule, what's going on? What are you going to be doing? Where are you heading next? So I was like, I got to get him to sign. I got to get him to sign this one. So it was awesome. Thanks for making my day, you know?
My pleasure.
Thanks for making my day. But for those that are listening that might not have any idea who you are and what you've been doing, you know, the past 50 years, maybe I'd say, like, what have you been up to? Who are you? And why are you here?
The path has been long and winding, Jay. I often ask myself those questions. But as far as comics go, I broke into comics in 1981 with Nexus, our superhero science fiction story that I co-created with the artist Steve Rude. We were in the right place at the right time. We heard that Capital City Distribution, the second largest comic distributor in the world, a huge corporation with warehouses in many countries, wanted to publish their own books. And they said they wanted a superhero. So I went home and I brainstormed Nexus. A lot of elements went into it. But I wrote the first pages by drawing them out by hand. I'm not a good artist, but I'm good enough that anybody can tell at a glance what I'm drawing. And that's how I wrote comics for 20 years. I drew each page out by hand. Artists and editors loved it because they could see at a glance what I was saying and doing. It also taught me so many invaluable lessons. If you want to do a comic, I would advise you to try it yourself, whether you can draw or not. You draw a big rectangle on a page, then you draw the first panel, and then you fill that panel with however you want to start your story. And you put in all the words and captions, and then you move on to the next panel. The reason I recommend this is because it forces you to think, what happens next? And that's the most important question in fiction. If the reader doesn't care, he's not going to turn the page. So I proceeded like an inchworm, panel to panel. I also learned how much weight a page can contain. I learned about the rhythm, the pulse of a comic. That is, every page does not have to have 6 symmetrical panels. You can shrink the number and blow up the picture if the picture merits. Or you can, if you're doing talking heads, you can put in 6 panels and have them talk. But if you do that, you make sure that your dialogue is credible and entertaining. My number one rule, whatever I write, is that it's my job to entertain, and I never lose sight of that fact.
Mm.
We got Nexus going, and dude drew the first 12 pages and penciled and inked them and lettered them. And we showed them to the boys at Capitol, and they said, "Yeah, now give us 20 more." So we were off and running. And after
And what year was this?
1981,
81.
yeah,
Now you've never written a comic before. What were you doing before that?
I had written an underground comic that Larry Gonick illustrated. I was living in Boston at the time. I was the music editor of the Boston Phoenix, but I had always loved comics, and I'd always wanted to do them. After 6 months, gave them Badger. That's another funny story. I was looking for an artist, and I saw a poster down on the UW that had been of the UW Badgers. It was a sports poster by a guy named Jeff Butler. So I contacted him. I said, "Hey, Jeff, you want to do comics?" He said, "Sure." And I said, "Well, what do you want to draw?" He said, "Well, I want to draw druids." So I wrote this 10-page story about a cantankerous druid in Wales in the 6th century. The other druids were so jealous of him that they used their magic to put him in a coma, and then they hired some Vikings to sail west and drop him off the edge of the earth. Only they never got to the edge of the earth. They came to the New World and they marched inland and they buried him in what was to become the upper Midwest. And Jeff drew them out. They were beautiful. And I took them in to show to the boys. And Milt, who was the head of Capital City Comics, is still my friend today. He looked at it and said, "Nah, we don't want any druids. We want a costume superhero." And my first thought was, why would anybody put on a costume and fight crime? They'd have to be crazy. And so the Badger was born. So I went back to Jeff and I said, "Jeff, they want a costume superhero." And Jeff says, "Well, I'm not wasting these 10 pages. And I said, "Fine." And that's how Ham met Badger, because after that, it switches to the present stage where Badger's an inmate in an insane asylum and the
Yeah.
cell next door contains Ham. So they start talking through the wall, and that's how they met.
I want to show something to the audience. This was this was your time at Marvel, if you don't mind.
No, go
So,
ahead.
because I know a lot of people, like I said, you have touched so many different things that I know a lot of people are like, "Oh my gosh, that's him. That's him," you know? Like I said, we were talking earlier that you did Star Wars Heir to the Empire, the comic, and can you explain while I scroll up and down, can you explain how that process works? So you took Timothy Zahn's work, and then do you have to break it down into the panels like how it's supposed to be, and then it goes to the artist? Is that how does that work?
Well, I
Like,
used the same technique I used on the other comics in drawing each page out by hand. They told me they wanted 6 comics out of each novel. So I took the books and I divided them into 6 roughly equal portions, of course, taking into account the chapter headings and breaks, because each book had to end at a natural point, which is where a chapter ends. A chapter ends often with a little teaser or a
yeah.
cliffhanger, so that you're going to go and get the next book. And then I took 1/6 of each novel and I went page by page. And I was thinking 24 pages, 24 pages. And I thought, what am I going to use? How am I going to adapt it? And when it was a big scene, I would include big scenes. And that meant that the panels were bigger and there was less dialogue. Timothy Zahn is a very visual writer. It was very easy to adapt his work. And every word that appears in those comics was written by Timothy. I didn't
Mm.
use any of my own dialogue. So it's probably the purest comic book adaptation of a novel you're ever going to see. It was a
But
dream
that's a
job.
beautiful thing. That's a
Yeah,
beautiful thing that it's like that.
I enjoyed it.
That you didn't inject your you mean to tell me you didn't inject your own politics or You didn't want to change up the characters. You took what the person wrote.
That's not
It's
my job.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. Um, like I said, now what I what I know you for is the Punisher. That was my first introduction. Well, I probably have some of your other stuff as well. I just once this Punisher series kicked off, it was like this became my favorite Marvel comic book character. Never missed. I was one of those guys that when I went to buy, I had to wait till my dad took me to 7-Eleven, and it hopefully they had it. Right. And there was another, if not, I was like, I would beg him to take me to this other place that sold comics as well. But I was buying all these like in the 7-Eleven. Fingers
Sure.
crossed that they didn't sell. Some of the copies looked like a dog chewed them up. It's like I don't know what the guys were doing. They were just cramming them in where they were holding them. And but still, I didn't miss an episode of this Punisher series. Now, when you got the call to work for Marvel, is this the first thing that you did with Marvel? Was it
Yes,
the
it
Punisher?
was. Yes, the call came from Carl Potts.
Mm,
Carl was reading The Badger, and he liked it, and he thought that I could do a good Punisher, and I leaped at the chance. The Punisher was very easy for me to write because I approached it as a straight crime comic. For 3 years, there was no science fiction, time travel, monsters, or devils, or anything like that. It was Punisher versus drug smugglers, psycho gangs, crooked bankers, malicious preachers, like Jim Jones. There was a story I riffed
yes.
off of him. I did include the Kingpin because he's one of the Punisher's natural enemies. I did include Daredevil because they wanted a crossover, and that was fine with me too, because Daredevil is a street level superhero,
Right.
somebody who would fit seamlessly into a Punisher story. And I included Doctor Doom, who likewise is not too outrageous in that he had no superpowers. He was just a very powerful man in an iron suit. And so I was happy with those stories. After 3 years, I got a different editor, and he was a bit of a gimmick guy. And at that point, the stories began to integrate more completely with the Marvel universe, and there were appearances from characters from the X-Men and so forth. But that was my process. I was ripping those stories straight out of the newspaper, and I still do that. I always say I don't choose my stories choose me.
Mm. I think I think the reason why the Punisher is so popular is because you have a guy that doesn't have superpowers, and he was one of the original. Would anti-hero be the best term to describe him?
He's a vigilante. He's a
Um,
classic American
yeah.
vigilante.
And so he gets the job done. He doesn't follow any rules, but he kind of has a small moral compass. Um,
Oh,
but
definitely.
yeah, and it's just, he's hanging with the big boys. Before that, like he would always appear with Daredevil or Spider-Man or different things and he'd always be able to hang with them, as far as the comic book would go. And then, you know, when they gave us Punisher fans the limited edition series, you know,
That was
and
by Stephen Grant and Mike Zeck.
and that was like, okay, it must have. I don't know the numbers, but it must have done very well because it wasn't very long until they said, "Let's get Mike Barron over here and let's start an not limited edition series. Let's just pump them out and see how well they do." How does that? I don't know how much you could share, but how does that work when Marvel says, "All right, I want you to sit down. Here's your character. You're writing for the Punisher." Do they give you a book of other characters that they'd like for you to use or that you're allowed to use? No. Uh,
They just said, "Here, take it," and I ran
just
with it.
go for it.
In all the years I wrote for Marvel and DC, I can count the instances of editorial interference on one hand.
Really?
I should point out that Punisher is a ripoff of Don Pendleton's The Executioner, a long-running pulp paperback series. However, I think that I gave him a unique personality, uh, and that nobody would confuse him with the Executioner. But that's where he came from.
Uh I don't care where he came from. It was an awesome character. What you did with him was it was beautiful. But
Thank
my
you.
biggest problem with the Punisher is that I personally don't think they haven't gotten him right in the cinematic universe yet.
I agree with you.
Like I'm where is the Punisher in the comic books? It seems like they always try to
I know. It's
they
so easy to get right too, but they just can't seem to get it right. I thought that Ray Stevenson physically was the best Punisher, but his story was too silly to take seriously. And you have to take the story seriously, because if you don't, the audience isn't going to take it seriously.
do you think they made those films for people that weren't comic book fans? Like
Yes,
they were
they did.
trying to
Undoubtedly. Undoubtedly, they said, well, comic book fans are nice, but that's not the vast millions and millions of people who go to the movie. We have to appeal to them. The most perfect Punisher movie ever made is The Equalizer, starring Denzel Washington. If you want
mm,
to know what a perfect Punisher movie should look like, that's it.
I don't know if now that Disney owns it, like I don't know if we'll ever get a uh a serious Punisher movie ever. The one did you get to see the Punisher in the Daredevil series?
Yes, I did. I like John Bernthal. I think he took the character seriously, and I appreciate that. He seems a little small to me. If I were going to cast Punisher, I'd cast Frank Grillo. Uh,
Mm,
but he remains, for those who want pure Punisher, my books are out there, and Chuck Dixon's books are out there, and that's as pure as you can get. Of course, in recent years, Marvel has become embarrassed by the Punisher and has decided to emasculate him and drag him through the mud and make him ridiculous and do away with the symbol. They are embarrassed by the fact that police and military have adapted the symbol for their own uses when all it means is justice. And
yeah.
because of that, I created a character called Private American. It caused a furor when I announced it, but it was very successful. And you can get Private American at my store, which is baroncomics.com.
Yeah, we got the links being shared um which for all your work because actually I hope that answers your question, John. He's like, what are Mike's thoughts about the horrible character changes the Punisher got in the comics, only now to try to bring Punisher Classic into a Disney Plus show? It's well, I
You
hope he
know,
answered that
I
question.
have something I'm going to lay into our Twitter feed here. This is from Private American. I think you'll get a quick kick out of this, because it gives you a flavor what the book is about, and will certainly tell you why people were so outraged about it.
Is that not on is that not on baroncomics.com?
Oh, the book is, yeah. This
The
is
book
just a
is
single
there.
panel. This is just a single panel. If I can find it.
Oh, and
Uh,
we'd love to because the next thing is
oh, yeah, I know how to find it. Hang on.
we're gonna talk about Florida, man. While you're looking for that, I want to thank Susan for becoming a new member of the channel. Thank you so much. Sharon Anderson for 5 a.m. here in Australia, and I finally made it all the way from Australia early in the morning. Do you guys drink coffee over there? I'm not sure. Alternative Universe Lethal Lighting. Doing big things now. Just come out to let you know that I became the world's best COD player. Thanks for the secret spot. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. And Clyde says, is it true that Florida Man is based on Jay?
No, as I said, my stories choose me. And every time I went online, there was another outrageous Florida man headline. There are thousands of them now. And if you want to take a look at them, there's a site called floridaman.com, which has them all. The one that sticks in my mind is Florida Man claims syringe found in rectum is not his. Uh, and, a lot of them are a little unsavory or disgusting like that. But that's not what I wanted. My Florida man, Gary Duba, is just a redneck living in a trailer down by the swamp. He
Sounds like
likes to get,
me.
he likes to get high. He likes to get stoned. He's been in and out of trouble with the law his whole life. But he's got a heart of gold and he'll give you the shirt off his back. And that's what makes the stories work, because you care about Gary and his friends. They're crazy. They get into all sorts of ridiculous predicaments, but they're entertaining. And there's a great deal of emotional depth to the stories. But first and foremost, my number one rule is to entertain. If you
Yes.
if you read the novel or the comic, you'll laugh out loud. I guarantee it.
Here's the Private American. This is what you were talking about.
That's right.
What is he gonna do with that knife?
You're gonna cut somebody's heart out.
That's it. I love the "Don't tread on me" on the front there.
Yeah, a lot of people went crazy about that, and not in a good way. How dare you? How dare
I'm telling you.
you?
I'm
Oh
telling you.
yeah, play the video if it'll play. See if it'll play.
Can you guys see it?
America's southern border has become a war zone. Human traffickers, drug smugglers, and terrorists flow across the Rio Grande with impunity, secure in the knowledge that no one will stop them. A distant federal government lectures Americans on their privilege while punishing overworked Border Patrol agents who were helpless to stem the tidal wave of invaders and determined migrants. Second-generation Cuban-American Marcos Zamora is a military vet, more patriotic than most Americans. No longer able to ignore the chaos at his doorstep, he acts. Joined by his best friend Gus, they hit the border every night, saving lives while stopping violent drug cartels and other opportunists. The government reacts with fury at Marcos' attempts to preserve American sovereignty, deploying the full might of their enforcement agencies. But Marcos understands that the only thing the rich and powerful fear is bad publicity, and he records every encounter. Whoever he is, this private American must be stopped. Illustrated by Richard Bonk and written by Eisner winner Mike Barron, Private American is his version of Captain America, and maybe a little Punisher, taking part in this ongoing, violent,
Maybe a
very
little
real battle
Punisher.
of good versus evil in the war for American sovereignty. Grab your copy at theprivateamerican.com.
We have a secure border, and that is a priority for our administration.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah, thanks. Chris Brawley put that together. Chris runs all my campaigns. He's also the guy behind Bleeding Fool.
That's amazing. Let's see. We have someone that wants to thank you, Vice, for $10. Hey, Mike, I truly loved Bronze Star. Thanks for such a great book.
Thanks, Vice. You'll be happy to hear that Pat is well into the second issue.
Man, you're working on a ton of things.
Well, it
You're
seems
all
that
over
way.
the
When I
place,
say
aren't
Pat
you?
is working on it, that means he's illustrating the script I wrote. But I finished the script months ago. It's not like I do work on 6 projects at once. I have to admit I do, but I don't work on everything all the time all at once.
Joan says, Hail Jay. Hi, Joan. Thanks for being here. And check out all the links from Mike. They're in the pinned comment, they're in the description, and my mods are dropping them right now. Trust me. I see Garfield's Bizarre Adventure. I think it's your first time over here. Everybody hanging out, over 100 people. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, the links are in the description as well. All right, the second one that I got to bring up, because somebody brought it up, is Florida Man. I know you talked a little bit about Florida Man. I don't know. You're not from Florida.
No, but I've been there many
You've
times.
been there. Okay. So as a Florida man myself, we appreciate the love, And if people in the chat, let me just tell you, there's a game that you can play with your friends,
I
and
know.
it's the Florida Man birthday game. So all you got to do is type in the month and day you were born next to the word Florida Man, and you will get a headline as to what your Florida man adventure will be. It's a fun game that we do with friends.
Yeah, that's funny because I was visiting a friend last year, and I told them about that. So the guy, one of my friends there, he took it up and he typed in his name in Florida man. The story that came up was Florida man claims syringe found in rectum is not
Yeah.
his.
Yeah. I think mine is Florida man um found naked floating in neighbor's pool enjoying tacos, something like that. It was like something weird, and I was like, well, that's Florida for you. That's what we, if you live in Central Florida, those type of stories happen all the time. Alligators are like, I tell people, like, we have alligators in our backyard all the time. My first encounter with an alligator moving from Miami to Central Florida was there was one under my car. It wasn't very big. And my neighbor stopped me. He was like, "Hey, there's a gator under your car." Sweet little old lady that sits outside drinking her tea, watching the world go by. And I was like, "What do you do?" And she's just like, "You kick the tire." So I kicked the tire, and sure enough, the thing just went right back into the canal. So, but Florida, I'm gonna watch this. Do you mind? I'm gonna watch the
No,
Florida
go ahead.
man.
Hey man, y'all got beer still?
You've seen the stories. Now, writer Mike Barron and artist Todd Mulrooney are bringing the quintessential Florida man, Gary Duba, to life. Gary's just a regular guy living in a trailer with his girlfriend Crystal, but he's got dreams, big dreams. He just invented house suspenders that will secure any home to the ground in rough weather. And now he's going to show them off on Piranha Pool, the TV show where venture capitalists and entrepreneurs pony up if they like your pitch. But when his gal Crystal gains notoriety as an infamous amateur wrestler, she quickly advances to the pro circuit where her greatest challenge is an angry Australian grappler. Follow Gary and Crystal on their extraordinary journey from rags to riches. To rags, to riches, to rags, to riches. All while dealing with shady lawyers, toilet snakes, wild gators, cheating hearts, feral hogs, and problem shoppers. Back Florida Man today and reserve your very own copy of the Florida Man graphic novel. We're bringing back funny books, y'all.
You know, that series could never end.
No,
There's
it's
enough.
true. I have a third one written. It's the funniest one yet.
There's enough Florida man material. The fact, like, like earlier on, where was it? The house suspenders.
They actually did that in the
This
latest
past-
hurricane. I saw pictures of it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that have that. They actually dig up. So what they do is they dig in front of their home and they fill it with concrete, and then they have those big straps, and they put it over their home to hold it down. So I don't know if it works, but like,
It did work.
we have that.
It did
There's
work.
actually people that will install those for you. That's why when I saw that, I was like, "Oh my god, he put the house suspenders in." That's freaking hilarious. It's what has been one of, I know you have a lot. What has been one of your favorite works to work on? Other
Well,
than, all right, no, you can't say The Punisher. I know you love them all, but was there one that was just like, man, I'm getting paid for this. I'm having way too much fun. You know?
One of the bright spots in my life is I love writing more than ever, and although there are many works I did in the past that I would like to recall, nothing within the last 10 or 15 years. I'm very happy with all of it. Certainly, I love Florida Man. That's more pure fun than anything else. But right now, I'm writing a new Nexus adventure.
Yes.
The last one we put out with art by Kelsey Shannon was a huge success. I can't tell you who's drawing this new one, but it's going to blow your mind. And we can't announce it yet because I haven't even finished the script to get it to him. And I have another great artist working on Nexus. I love both those characters. You got to love your own children more than any others. But Bronze Star, I love Bronze Star. I had a blast writing the new one. And people are going to go crazy. The reaction to the first one was overwhelming. It sold out. We got rave reviews everywhere. And what blows my mind is this is the greatest work of Pat Broderick's career.
Mm.
And Pat has been in the industry for almost a half century. And to keep getting better and better like he does is almost unheard of.
A question, if you could see that.
Yeah, I
I
saw
was
that, Clyde. It was smooth. And, Blaine and I just had a podcast this morning, which was on X. It's on my feed and probably on Blaine's as well, where we discuss the importance of character in writing and how to create memorable characters. We're working on the second tenure novel right now.
the second one.
The
Uh,
first one it hasn't even been published yet. It'll be out in January, but a number of people have gotten advanced copies and gone crazy with the reviews. All you have to do is search for review tenure by Pardo and Barron, and you'll see what I mean. We couldn't be more excited or pleased.
Now, before I even get into the Sherlock Holmes, we're gonna save that till a little bit later. But the links are there. How was it? How was your introduction into the Rippaverse? How did that happen?
I'm not sure exactly how that happened, although I know at one point I said, Eric, can I write for you? And he said, you bet.
I mean, you just called him? Did you tweet at him?
I think it was an email.
An email.
Yeah.
And then you just said, hey, Eric, love what you're doing.
Yeah.
Can I write you a story?
Yep. Yep. And he said, well, let me see what I got. He gave me Gooding.
Yes, that's right. And I got the cool cover, man. I went and got it can't see because of the green screen, but I got the cool cover. Night Saber says, Jay, turn your skin brightness down. Look, I'm on my backup camera. I'm sorry. It looks funny. But yeah, there's Gooding. Can we get any spoilers on this guy, on where we're going and
I read about Gooding, and he had
him?
a few pages in ISOM 1 and ISOM 2, particularly number 2, and where he starts offering medical and security services and fire extinguishing services. So we knew this was a guy disciplined in many different arts, which is what polymath means. It means somebody who's good at a lot of things. He was just a mortal man, but he's one of those geniuses that comes along from time to time, like Einstein or Oppenheimer, who sees things that other people don't and can put them together in new configurations to help humanity. Gooding follows young Cato, that's his first name, Cato, young Cato's life from the time he's in junior high up to the present. And you learn a lot about who he is and why he's that way when you take that journey with him. You learn that in junior high and high school, he was accosted by a bully, constantly harassing him. Every time they passed in the hall, the bully, whose name was Ron Hodges, would punch him in the gut. So Cato got fed up, and he took 10 thumbtacks and he put them inside his sweater with the flat part against his abdomen and the pins pointed out. And the next time they passed in the hall, Hodges punched him in the stomach, and Cato turned around because they were passing each other and looked back, and Hodges was like, and it was just a start of their long rivalry, which culminates at the end of the book when Hodges comes to kill him.
It's not an anti-hero story. I don't want to give it away for those that might be picking it up, but it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I have to emphasize that my number one rule is to entertain, and I never lose sight of that fact. I try to make every picture and every word count towards the entertainment. I want to enthrall the reader. I want to immerse the reader so deeply in the story that he or she will be irritated at any interruption.
Yeah, he's an intelligent character that learns to, I mean, I guess some people might even compare it to an Iron Man or however, where he's able to invent things and put on a suit and
I think he's more credible.
yeah. And without giving too much away, even the villain at the end. So it's a masterclass in storytelling. It's all I'm saying, everyone. So I hope you've picked it up. How many are you working on the second one?
The second one is finished, but it's not going to be out for a while because the publishing schedule at the Rippaverse is jammed with titles. They're stacked up like boxcars on a siding, and they'll be coming out in the next 2 years. I'm not sure if Gooding is even going to appear next year, but it will appear.
But at least we'll have. I mean, you have your outlines of stories for this character.
Oh yeah,
And
I've
where
already
it's gonna
completed
go.
2 scripts.
There
Well,
you
yeah,
go.
I mean, Gooding 1 and Gooding 2 is complete. And there's another title I created that's in the works, but that's a ways off too. You're going to be very excited when you read that.
Jay, stop jamming Ripa's work. Okay. And Phoenix, thank you for the 5 gifted memberships to the channel. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. That you have something else that you're working on as well, which is Sherlock Holmes Leviathan.
That's the current campaign.
Yeah.
And if you like Sherlock Holmes, you're going to love this. Even if you don't like Sherlock Holmes, you're going to love this.
So I'm going to pull up the teaser trailer, and the link is in the pinned comment. It's also in the description, like I've said this before.
Can you blow that up? The picture? Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Sherlock Holmes.
When a series of shipping disasters points to a mysterious sea monster, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson leave the comfort of Baker Street and board a freighter where they encounter unexpected betrayal and come face to face with the enigmatic Captain Nemo and his submarine, the Nautilus. As they delve deeper into the case, they uncover a conspiracy involving a Russian Tsar with an airship that rains destruction on unsuspecting cities. With time running out and the world on the brink of war, the heroes must use all their skills and resources to stop a massive conspiracy and prevent global conflict. From Eisner-winning writer Mike Barron and illustrator Richard Bonk, dive into the depths of adventure and unravel the mysteries of the sea with the world's greatest detective in Leviathan. Order now on Indiegogo.
How did this come about?
I always wanted to do a Sherlock Holmes story. I've been a Sherlock Holmes fan my whole life. When I was a kid, I was a member of the Baker Street Irregulars, which is the name of many clubs of Sherlock Holmes enthusiasts. And we'd all meet and talk about the books and the movies and who we liked. And the appeal of teaming him up with Captain Nemo, which had never been done, it was too great to resist. The other pieces just seem to fall into place. When I do a story like this, I research it, not just who the characters are. And of course, I've read Sherlock Holmes and I've read Jules Verne, but also what was going on at that time period. What were the vital events of the day that might concern them? It's a bigger adventure because Sherlock has had many smaller adventures solving the individual murder here and there. But this is much bigger in the sense that he has to prevent world war.
Mm.
And he's not at all eager to do it. He doesn't like to be on the water. But when the shipping magnate comes to him and says, Mr. Holmes, 2 of my freighters have disappeared without a trace. I'd like to hire you to find out why. And Holmes says, I don't go on the water. And the shipping magnate says, I will give you a Stradivarius violin. And so Holmes becomes interested, and that's how he joins the hunt.
How are you able to use Sherlock Holmes? Is it already in like open copyright, or did you have to get a permission, or how does that work?
No, he's in the public domain.
He's in public. Okay.
Yeah, and the fact is there have been more Sherlock Holmes novels since the death of Conan Doyle, probably 5 times as many, 10 times as many as Conan Doyle ever wrote. They're called pastiches to differentiate them from the canon. but many of them are first rate. Some have been turned into movies. I think of the 7% Solution, which stars Nicole Williamson and teams him up with Sigmund Freud. It's a fascinating movie. I recommend it. I'm a big fan of the movies. Jeremy Brett is my favorite Sherlock
Mm.
Holmes, followed by Benedict Cumberbatch and then Basil Rathbone. But so many fine actors have done Holmes. Peter Cushing is great in The Hound of the Baskervilles, which is a
You
Hammer
didn't like
horror.
Robert Downey Jr.?
I do like Robert Downey Jr., but not as Holmes. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's like a Charles Bronson type character. With and Holmes is certainly a pugilist, but the way Guy Ritchie went about it,
Yes.
it was too superficial for me and too stylized, and that's my complaint about most of Guy Ritchie's movies, but not The Covenant, which is brilliant and is far and away his best movie, and that's because he didn't write it.
Now, is this a standalone, or you plan on doing more Sherlock
Well,
Holmes?
it depends on the reception, and my friends. Even if you're a superhero fan, you're going to love this book. I promise you, it will entertain you and enthrall you from the beginning until the end. You're going to be resentful if anybody interrupts you trying to read it. You're going to read it over and over again. You're going to tell your friends about it. Those who are familiar with my work know that I mean what I say and I speak the truth. This is a great story. You're going to love it. And if it does well, I'm already thinking about the next one. I'm already
Mm.
thinking about the next story for so many of my characters. Some move ahead like a chess piece, some move back. For instance, the recent election derailed my second Private American graphic novel, which is already written, um, but it would seem anachronistic at this point.
Uh, I mean, if you have fans of that work, then they would probably want to see. You could always put the date back a few years.
No, that one was another one that was ripped from the headlines. But subjects like Nexus and Florida Man and Bronze Star are timeless standalone adventures. Uh, and in that sense, they cannot be dated. And that's what I'm working on now.
You have a does your how do I put this? Does your for people like yourself that love to create and tell stories and um does your brain ever turn off?
I
Or
wish
does
it
it
did.
like when
No.
you finally have a moment of I don't know, enjoy like the way that you've been talking is it's clear to me that you literally can be walking down the street and see something happen and your mind turns it into a wonderful story to tell the world.
Well, it's not as simple as that, but you're partially correct in that the mind never turns off, and inspiration can come from anywhere, and it will strike when you least expect it. I carry a notepad and a pen with me everywhere I go. I recommend that everybody does the same, and I write down anything that strikes my fancy. But especially when I'm working on a story, it could be just a name that resonates. It could be an interesting scientific fact or a little known historical fact. Sometimes I'm inspired by just a style or a milieu, like
Mm.
noir. Noir stories are often set in the past. They're very dark. They have a very dark view of human nature. They're pessimistic, and they often do not end up well. And examples of that are Night in the City starring Richard Widmark, or Nightmare Alley starring Tyrone
Yes.
Power. The remake of Nightmare Alley I also recommend, starring Bradley Cooper. They're both great. They're both very, very bleak views of human nature. And that was the springboard for a story I created called Groovin' High, which takes place in the 60s. And it's about a jazz musician who falls in love with the wrong dame. And I have a great artist working on it right now.
My your website's going to be filled. It's just going to be filled with so many like so many different adventures that's running through your mind.
I know. But
What
I'm
does
making
Mike
up for lost time. There were 10 years there I couldn't get any work whatsoever. I had to take a job as a janitor.
when was this?
It was like from around 1995 to 2010. Actually, it was longer than that before I really felt that I was coming back.
So was that just a pause and like?
Wasn't my decision, but I didn't understand how to sustain a career. I have a better understanding now. I don't blame anyone but myself. But one of the things is that there's a turnover in editors at both Marvel and DC. And whenever you get a batch of new editors, they say, okay, goodbye, all you old guys. I'm bringing in my friends. So I lost a lot of gigs that way. I wasn't tight with those editors like I was with the previous editors.
And you never thought to like branch out solo and try to do something,
Well,
on your own during
I
that
did,
time?
and I had a few bright spots. I, but when I finally started writing again, it was a novel. Uh,
Mm.
and as I was a third of the way into the novel, I thought, holy shit, I have it. And because I've been trying to write novels my whole life. Um, and it took me 30 years to learn how to write a novel. That's because I'm a slow learner. But when you get it, you get it. And by that, I mean understanding story. What constitutes story? And once you understand that, you don't make a wrong turn. And so I have a lot of novels out right now. And if you want to see them, just go to Amazon, type in Mike Barron. Excuse me, I'm being waylaid by fruit flies.
That's okay.
This is
I have
um,
Mike Barron on my podcast, and he's being attacked by fruit
dive bombed by
flies.
fruit flies. I don't know
All
where they're
right.
coming from.
So
We look
what is
everywhere.
that book going to be called? You
Well, the
know?
novel I was working on was, oh, you mean the fruit fly?
Yeah, we got to have a fruit fly adventure now.
Fruit fly free for all.
I say that works.
I mean, that's going to find my way into my fiction at some point, I'm sure. But anyhow, I write three types of novels. One is hard-boiled crime, and that's my biker series. There are 10 biker novels available now, and they're hard-boiled crime. I was inspired to write them, of course, by John D. MacDonald and Travis McGee, but Josh Prattis is his own man. He's a reformed motorcycle hooligan who went to prison and found God and comes out determined to turn his life around. The stories are gritty. Many of them are ripped from the headlines. Uh, but the main thing, of course, is intrigue and drawing the reader into the story to the exclusion of all else. I'm working on the 11th right now.
Do you
There are a
think a
lot of
lot
people
of
who do series characters like that. Don Pendleton was a series character, but Josh is not a vigilante like that. He's a private investigator, more like John D. MacDonald, and
did
a
you get
court of
that one?
last resort. These goddamn, I
You
don't
have
know.
like an apple in there or something, or is it
We
just the
searched
season?
everywhere for where they can be coming from. We don't know. And I tried all the cures. They say, oh, apple cider vinegar in a jar. Yeah, I tried that 5 times, nothing. But they're dying like fruit flies in my soap dish. I don't know why. But anyhow,
Yeah,
back to
anytime I see a
Josh
spider,
Pratt.
I just nuke the house with fog and
That's a good
like,
idea. I'll nuke the house. If you're interested, you start at the first one. It's just called Biker. And then they grow from there, but they're highly addictive. The second type of novel I write are humor, and those are my Florida Man novels. And Florida Man is by far my most successful novel. It strikes a chord. And if you read it, I guarantee you will laugh out loud. There are 3 Florida Man novels. I've been working on a third, but a fourth, but I had to shift gears because as somebody noted, Blaine Pardo contacted me and wanted me to co-write with him this tenure series. And the first one will be released in January. It's already up on Amazon. Tenure by Blaine Pardo and Mike Barron. And it's about a history professor in Portland who refuses to indulge a student who insists on a special pronoun.
oh
Uh,
wow.
so she complains to the authorities, and this being Portland, they fire him. And a word gets out, and his life spirals out of control. Antifa attacks his wife, runs her off the road. She dies. They call the police and phone in a fake SWAT threat. So the SWAT squad invades his house at night. And when his daughter's reaching for her phone, they think it's a pistol. So they kill her. And finally, the protagonist has nothing left and decides to strike back because a man who has nothing to lose can be very
I'm
effective.
telling you got a little Punisher in like a lot of your works.
It's true.
Every time I hear it, but I'd love to get into the um I know you said you're inspired by a lot of headlines and things like that that go into your work. But what is first, like what does a day look like? Do you do this? You write it out? Is it on a computer?
No, I don't write
Is
it
it
out, but I write every morning, and I have for 50 years. I get up and I start writing,
just,
and
and
I'm
it could
working
be on
right.
any story, right?
Yeah, but like right now, how many? Let's see, how many? Uh, what is the term? I'm thinking of the term for these. Uh, oh man, I'm losing my mind. Wait. I got it. Documents. How many documents do I have open right now? 4 documents. One of them is a Nexus story I'm working on, and one of them is the next Josh Pratt novel. The others are not fiction. One's record reviews. I write record reviews to get free records. I started doing that in college, and I've been doing it ever since. Because if you write about them, you get free records. I love music. I love to keep up with music, and so I'm still writing about music
My
just to get the
friend
free
is
records.
my friend is screaming in the chat. Badger,
Okay, well,
badger.
you're in luck because there's going to be a new Badger in the stores in January. Hang on a second. I'll get you a picture of that.
Look at that. You get an exclusive.
Yeah, take a look at your at your Twitter messaging, Jay. I
Yep.
sent you a couple pictures there.
Oh, perfect. That's a picture. That's not a badger. I have
There
to
we
get the
go.
other ones to come through. So far, I've only gotten one.
Hang on.
Good old Twitter.
Oh, this is so irritating. I mean, just how many? Here we go. First Comics News. I mean, how many sites does First Comics have? It's ridiculous. Here we go.
I just like, for me, like the while you're pulling that up, it's the process of
I don't understand.
right
Where
writing.
the hell is the?
Thank you, Beanpad. You threw us all off with your Badger talk. Knee Pain. What's up, brother? Has gifted 5 memberships to the
This is
channel.
ridiculous. I
While
don't.
Mike Barron is struggling on the podcast trying to find. You get an exclusive. This is what it's like for him every.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I don't know why they wouldn't have it front and center. It's just so hard to find.
Thank you, Knee Pain. I appreciate it.
Wait a
James in the
minute.
chat is screaming that you need to start making and writing for movies.
Boy, I would love to. And in fact, I have written a movie script, and the Soskas have planned. Here it is. Here it is.
Nice. Everyone was asking the same question.
All right, I'm putting it in your Twitter messaging.
All right.
And this is the new Badger. We actually wrote it 7 years ago, but it's only being released now. First is a boutique company these days and can't afford to
Look at
produce
that.
monthly comics. But this is illustrated by Vail Myerick. I'm very happy with it. It's about how Ham buys a little island in the Caribbean to protect it from developers.
All
That's
my
it.
Badger people in the chat, are you happy? Are you happy? There you
I'm
go.
happy.
Well, that's the most important thing. Through all of that. I'm just waiting to see what they say. Beanpad, that was for you and everyone else that was asking about the Badger. There, he said he's very happy. There you go. That's
Good.
what I like to hear.
But beyond that, I'm planning a Big Badger graphic novel that first will not be publishing. It's written. I can't tell you who the artist is. It's going to be a big surprise. You're going to love it. But that's probably a year or two down the line.
What I'm saying is, for me, that has no idea how any of this stuff works. Even though I do have a graphic novel out now, and I have a very special one next year that I can't wait for that one to drop. It is the process of taking your story and then I guess it's called scripting it into the panels. Is that correct? Help me out here. It's like so you
Well,
take the
everybody does it differently. I told you how I started by drawing each
yeah.
page out by hand. I don't do that any longer. I now write full script. But before I write the script, I work up
How do
an
I
outline.
that's what I'm saying. Like, how does that work? Like you write a full script, so it's like movie script, right? That's how you do it. Like this
Yeah,
person says this and this person says
yeah.
that. So you're not boxing it out as much as you used to. Is that what
Well,
we're depending on
yes and
the
no.
story?
I'll send
Right,
you one
right.
of my scripts so you can see what I'm doing.
Yes, I would like to see that because, like you said, everybody does it different. I spoke to some people that just they like seeing how they operate in this sphere is very unique because some people they love to like trace out the boxes because they have in their mind how they want to see the character standing or what it's next to, and then they're able to write in the paneling, like where they want this thing to stand and what they want to say, and they put that all together. And then there's other people that just they kind of write the story and then they hand it off and say, "Can you turn this into a script? Can you turn this into paneling?" It's like it's a crazy process for different people,
Right, and I don't
putting all
want to
that
take a
together.
chance on that. And it's not that I don't trust the illustrator. I trust my illustrators completely. I think, however, it's important to give them the script up front,
Mm,
the actual dialogue from the book, so that they can make their characters act appropriately. Otherwise,
correct.
you can do it the Stan Lee method, which is all right. Fantastic Four and Doom are fighting. 5 pages of fight scenes here, and then Doom gets him in his castle, and he threatens them all, but they escape. And so he leaves it to the artist completely to put in the ups and downs.
A
He
lot of
leaves
trust there, though. Then,
the
right?
dynamics, yeah, and you have to have an artist who's a bit of a storyteller, and fortunately Jack Kirby was. And then he comes along and adds the dialogue as an afterthought. Well, that's one way to do it, but I don't think it doesn't work for me because my stories are very finely tuned. They depend a lot on dialogue and timing. I will often put in a panel where a character is asked a question and they just pause, and it's just a panel of the character pausing. Sometimes he lights a cigarette. I love to do that just to piss people off. But then in the next panel he answers. But that's the way it would be in a movie. I mean, people don't talk back and forth like a tennis match. There are
Correct.
pauses where they do things
Correct.
or think about what they're going to say.
Or kill fruit flies
So
in the
it's
middle
like
of an interview.
I got the book here opening. This is a much more effective way. If I get them right over the book and I bring the book up and slap it, that's been more effective than
The
just me using.
gooding. He takes care of everything. Bullies, fruit flies, and everything in between.
Well, I
Uh,
got to point out that one of his inventions in Gooding is he invents what I call the base blocker. And so, you're sitting at a stop sign and somebody pulls up next to you in their car and they got rap booming out of the massive bass in their trunk at 120 decibels. Nobody likes that. So he creates this device and you just push the button and it jams the bass. The bass stops operating.
and that's was that because that was a personal experience?
We've all had that experience, haven't you?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, a lot of
And you're just
what I
sitting
put
there
in.
at a red light, and you can feel your own car starts to shake, and you're like,
Yeah,
"What the heck?" Okay, it's the guy next to me. How he's
it's
not
just,
really
people
enjoying
are being
this.
thoughtless. It's just, they don't have that would never happen in Japan, for
People
example.
like the guy in the car with Rap is J. You guys really want me in a Mike Barron story, don't you? I'll share with him some
send me
Florida man.
pictures.
Yeah, I'll send you some Florida man story myself. When I was playing golf and we hit a ball and it was laying next to an alligator, I took some pictures and I was like, we were all standing there looking at it, like going, should we just reach down there and get it? Because if you stick a club down there, they might feel threatened. But if you walk up to it, for some strange reason, a lot of them don't. I do not try this at home or anything like that. They just kind of go away. Well, we have parks where I live that advertise that you'll see alligators roaming free. I have video of me standing in the park and alligator just walks right past me like it's my neighbor. So we were sitting there like
That's a seat in a Florida Man.
it literally
Novel.
it's like, it was why I have it up on my vlogging channel. It's just like, well, here it comes, and it just walks past, doesn't bother nobody. There's about 6 people, but we were sitting there debating if I should just grab the golf ball. And then, my brother was just like, let me get the camera out if you're going to go grab the golf ball.
These
Just in
gators
case.
are really fast.
So, well, I mean, we deal with them all the time. And so I decided against it.
Yeah.
We didn't
Wisely.
we didn't get it. I didn't even stick my club in there to get it. Usually we know if you get near an alligator and it starts to hiss and it has this sound, it's like, all right, they're a little irritated. Let's just keep moving. But if they're quiet and they don't do anything, they're usually kind of scared. I mean, we've had gators come out of I live there's like a canal. I wouldn't even call it a lake, but it's like a canal. They come up all the time and people slap their tails and they just take off. Like, that's Florida people for you, man. That's just how it is.
In the third Florida Man novel, Gary gets a job as a caddy at a golf course.
See, I knew this golf course.
And he carries a shotgun. He slips a shotgun into the guy's bag because he knows there's going to be some kind of hazard. And sure enough, a hippo emerges from one of the water hazards and charges the team. What are the hippos doing in Florida? Well, there was a drug dealer in the Everglades, and he was killed by a rival drug dealer, and he had a zoo. And the zoo included hippos, and the hippos got loose, and now they're breeding in the swamp, and they're a real problem. And believe it or not, that is straight out of Venezuela, where it's actually happening.
I wouldn't be surprised if, like, some of the animals from the zoos in Florida break loose and they just don't tell anybody. They just try to. Because now we have an issue
with a legitimate zoo, but it has happened with drug dealer zoos.
I think it'll happen in Florida because, like, a hurricane will come through and, like, knock some of the walls down, and that'll be the end of it. But Central Florida has an issue with pythons.
Oh, and yeah, absolutely, and that's in the second Florida Man graphic novel, and in the first, because they have an annual python call. The state sponsors it.
Yeah, we get $150 for every python we kill and turn it in. I don't know what they do with it. I think they take I don't know what they do with it. I don't know what they do with it.
You can eat it. And there's also a grand prize. There's a grand prize for the biggest python.
Oh man, I've been to 2 of those. So it's like there's a lot of people. The biggest problem that they have is people. They say they see money. They're like, oh, I can get money for just catching a snake.
Yeah.
So it makes people a little nervous. They're like, an amateur is going out in a boat, doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't realize that these things will constrict your arm off if they're big enough.
Shit.
And they're eating alligators and deer
They eat all the alligators they want.
And then the other thing too is, like, they're concerned for the Florida panthers that are in the swamps.
I don't blame them. That's what the pythons do, is they eat the native fauna and they're wiping it out. In this second Florida Man graphic novel, that's where Gary bags the python, and how he does it will astonish you, and then what he does afterwards will make you laugh too.
Don't give it away.
No.
Everybody pick it up. All the links are out there. They'll be in the description. You've got to check that out. But yeah, like it's just funny to me because living in Central Florida, you know, I would go visit family up north, and they're like, "Did you hear about the guy?" I was like, "Oh yeah, it's my neighbor." Like, it's like I send them pictures of the alligators like creeping up, like right on the back patio, and they're just like, "Is that for real?" I was like, "Yeah, you were sitting there when you visited. Like, it's right there." The other thing that we have is especially when it rains a lot, the snakes, they just come up and try to make little homes at the door. So you open the door to leave, and there's a big snake just coiled up, and you just kind of like,
Right.
oh, it kind of makes you jump a little bit.
Yeah.
But oh yes, also this is the other big thing is all the wild hogs
Well,
running around here in
it's
Central
funny that you
Florida.
mention that because the second Florida Man graphic novel is called Florida Man versus Hogzilla. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find that down here. Yeah. Pat Broderick
There
cover.
it is. Look at that. Now those things are the ones that you have to be careful.
No shit.
Yeah, those things will get those. They'll kill your dog. They will. Those Razorbacks, man, will just like not fun. These wild hogs in Florida, but they make a big business now because Florida man captures these hogs, okay, and then they have like 3 or 4 acres, not a lot, and they throw them all in this pen. And what happens is there's tons of these in Central Florida and Polk County and everywhere else. They put the word out. They're like to like city folk. They're like, hey, you want a hunting experience? Pay me money. I'll drive you around in a little RV, right? Like a little 4-wheeler quad, and I'll give you a gun, and you could kill a couple hogs, and I'll skin them and turn them into sausage or burgers for you. You'll get the whole hunting experience. All you gotta do is pay me money, right?
I love it. I love it.
And it's a big business. Like, people don't realize it's like it's people from all over. They're like, I've never shot an animal. Well, yeah, because like the hogs are evasive, and like they eat up all the orange groves and everything else. So
They're invasive and evasive. This is the same book.
there it is.
But this is also the story in which Gary captures the python. So and invasive species are the bane of Gary's life. They're either attacking him or he's trying to figure out how to make money off of him. The fourth Florida Man novel is called Toad Liquor. Because if you lick a cane toad, you'll have a psychedelic experience that will last 6 or 7 hours. So Gary figures if he get a bunch of these toads together, he can charge people like $10 a lick.
you have you have captured what life is like in Polk County, Florida. You've captured it beautifully.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
telling
in
you,
the
once
third
like
Florida Man graphic novel too, which is completely written and is the funniest one yet.
oh man, that sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. You've captured. If like Sheriff Grady Judd, the sheriff of Polk County, gets a hold of those, he's like, yeah, well, that's what we have to deal with on the regular. You know. But I mean, Mike Barron, writer for Marvel, writer for the Flash. You did the Flash in DC,
Yeah.
and was that the only one that you? I'm more of a Marvel person than I
No,
am
I
DC.
did Dead Man. In fact,
Dead Man.
Dead Man was the book on which Kelly Jones became Kelly Jones, exploding into his own style for the first time. It was a graphic novel we did called Love After Death. And I also did Hawk and Dove. I did a bunch of different characters for DC, but those are the most memorable.
And then Marvel, Punisher, Star Wars, other characters as well. Now with the Rippaverse, and you're doing your own standalone books. I mean, what's next? Just keep going, right? You got too many stories in your head? Is that where we're at? Like,
Well, I do have a novel I completed that I'm not at liberty to discuss, but it's a thermonuclear bomb. Hopefully, you'll be hearing about it in the new year.
well, if you ever need to promote it, please let me know.
Thanks, Jay. I'll
Uh,
tell you about it. I'll send you the outline. Just keep it under your hat.
absolutely. Please let me know. Well, our hour and 10 minutes are up. I want you guys to please check out the Sherlock Holmes Leviathan story. It is in the pinned comment. It is in the description. This is Mike Barron. If you don't know, now you probably know.
You know too much.
And now you know who this man is. You probably have some of his work. If you ever bought a comic book sitting around your home, do you enjoy going to the conventions and seeing fans and seeing people?
I do enjoy going to the smaller cons, and I enjoy seeing friends. Denver was, I'm not crazy about those huge conventions. I get lost. You don't know where you are. But, I'm doing them. I'm going to be at MegaCon next March in Florida. I hope you'll come by and say hello, Jay. If you do, let me know ahead of time.
I will. Well, I live here, so
Yeah.
it's like 5 minutes from my home.
Wow.
So and the Rippaverse will probably have some of my books there as well.
That's right. That's right. We may
So-
share a table.
But listen, man, MegaCon is a different animal than Denver. It's massive.
Yeah.
It's massive. So, well, but you will be there signing books, greeting fans.
Yep.
I did not know you were going to be there. So come meet Mike Barron in Orlando at the Rippaverse booth at MegaCon. And if you haven't done so, go to Mike Barron. Is it Mike Barron Comics or MikeBarron.com?
BarronComics.com.
Barron Comics. That's right. Because I keep seeing a few, but yeah, BarronComics.com. I will also have that in the description as well. So you could check out Florida Man and all the other wonderful stories that he's got. Nexus, Thin Blue Line, Private American, Bronze Star. It's all going to be there. Support Mike. He's a fantastic comic book writer. Again, like I said, he wrote probably my favorite series of all out of Marvel, which is the Unlimited Punisher series. So, Mike, any final words?
Well, just to repeat myself, always carry a tablet and a pen.
And what about like any final words for like young writers out there that like don't know like how like, hey, I want to write. I would love to write a comic book. Where would I even begin?
Well, we'll just say this, that writers are people who have to write.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you don't have anything in mind, sit down and start writing. Make it up as you go along. That's what I did. Of course, it was trash, but
You
it
gotta
got
start
me
somewhere,
started.
right? You got to start somewhere. You got to, my friend, thank you so much.
Thank you,
I
Jay.
really appreciate
Take care,
your
everyone.
time.
Thanks for listening. We hope you were inspired today. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next episode. And welcome to the Rebellion.